The number in your savings account went up last month, and the month before that. So here's the question nobody is asking. If your balance keeps going up, how have you already lost nearly £3,000? That's what this video is about. Not the vague idea that inflation is bad, you already know that. This is about the specific, documented mechanisms that have been quietly draining real money out of UK savings accounts for years, and why the people benefiting from it have absolutely no incentive to explain it to you. By the end of this, you'll understand the actual maths behind the £3,000 loss, a tax trap that's caught millions of people completely off guard, and a policy from the 1940s that's quietly running in the background of your bank account right now. Something almost no one in UK finance content ever explains. Let's start with the banks, because this is where the money is disappearing right now, today. Analysis of CACI data found that £612.4 billion is currently sitting in UK savings accounts paying 3% interest or less. And with inflation running above that level and expected to climb further across 2026, that money is going backwards in real terms. The balance still ticks up every month. That's the problem. Because when you see a number going up, your brain registers it as growth, and you stop looking. Someone with £10,000 in a 1% account is missing out on more than £280 a year compared to a competitive easy access deal. Multiply that across 5 years, and you're not talking about a rounding error. You're talking about a holiday, a car payment, a year of groceries. And here's the part that makes this worse. The banks know exactly what they're doing. The big banks rely on inertia. They know many of their clients have been banking with them for years, and the idea of switching feels like more trouble than it's worth to most savers. The FCA looked into this and found that Britain's biggest banks passed on only 28% of base rate rises to easy access savers between January 2022 and May 2023, while raising mortgage rates quickly and in full. This isn't a market accident. This is a deliberate bet on your inertia, and so far, it's paying off for them. So that's what's happening at the bank level. But there's a second layer to this that most people have never even heard of, and it goes all the way up to the government. This is the part I promised you earlier, and it goes back a lot further than you'd think. There's a term economists use called financial repression. It sounds academic, but the concept is simple. When a government keeps interest rates below the rate of inflation, the real value of debt shrinks over time without anyone having to default on anything. The country just quietly inflates its way out. The UK did this deliberately after World War II, when the national debt hit 238% of GDP in 1947. Economists Reinhardt and Sprancier calculated this mechanism cut UK and US debt burdens by 3 to 4% of GDP every single year for decades, making it one of the most effective, least visible taxes ever imposed on savers. The saver isn't just losing to inflation. They're funding the government's debt reduction, and they never got a vote on it. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but that was the 1940s. That's ancient history. Here's why it matters right now. As of mid-2026, the Bank of England has projected CPI to be 3.1% in Q2, 3.3% in Q3, and to rise somewhat further in Q4, driven by higher energy and food prices. Some forecasts suggest inflation could peak at around 4% by November. So the environment that makes financial repression work, rates that don't fully keep up with rising prices, is not a historical curiosity. It's the situation you're in right now. And this brings us to the number that ties the whole thing together. Research from Finder found the average UK saver has lost £2,989 in real terms between June 2020 and June 2025. The average £16,000 held in savings would be worth £20,286 today if the rate had simply kept pace with inflation. That's nearly £3,000 that existed in purchasing power terms and then quietly vanished, while the balance on the screen kept going up. This is what real terms loss actually looks like. Not a crash, not a scandal, just a slow and invisible drain that most people never notice until it's already happened. Now let's talk about the tax trap, because here's where it gets genuinely outrageous. The personal savings allowance, the amount of interest you can earn before paying tax on it, has been frozen at £1,000 for basic rate taxpayers and £500 for higher rate taxpayers since 2016. The Bank of England base rate in 2016 was 0.50%. It's now significantly higher. So in 2016, a basic rate taxpayer could have held around £100,000 in a typical savings account and never breached that allowance. That's no longer remotely true. The allowance didn't move. The rates did. That's a stealth tax rise that nobody announced and nobody voted for. And it's caught a staggering number of people completely off guard. A Freedom of Information request revealed that 2.64 million people are expected to pay tax on their savings interest in 2025/26, up from just 647,000 in 2021/22. HMRC expects to collect more than £6 billion from savers. Most of these people have never filed a tax return in their lives. The first they'll know about it is when a letter arrives or their tax code quietly changes. But it doesn't stop there, because two freezes are compounding on top of each other. Because income tax thresholds have also been frozen, the OBR estimates 4.8 million more people will be paying higher rate tax by 2030/31. And every single person who crosses that line sees their personal savings allowance instantly cut in half, from £1,000 down to £500, without doing anything differently. Two separate government freezes, stacking silently on top of each other. There's one more piece to this, and it's the one most people are relying on without realizing it's already changing. The cash ISA was supposed to be the answer to all of this, the tax-free shelter, the safe option. And for years it was genuinely useful, because you could put up to £20,000 a year in and pay zero tax on the interest, no matter what. But from 2027, the cash ISA allowance is set to fall from £20,000 to £12,000 for under 65s, right as the frozen personal savings allowance is dragging record numbers of ordinary savers into paying tax on interest for the first time. The one tool most people were relying on to protect themselves is being cut back at the exact moment more people need it most. So let's zoom out and look at what this actually adds up to. Your balance goes up, so you feel fine. But the bank passed on less than a third of the rate rises it received. Inflation has been running above what most savings accounts pay. The real terms loss for the average saver since 2020 is close to £3,000. The tax allowance hasn't moved in nearly a decade, while rates tripled. Millions of people are now paying tax on their savings without realizing it. And the main tax shelter most people use is about to get smaller. None of this is a conspiracy. It's just a system that works very well for banks and governments, and not very well for savers who aren't paying attention. The good news is that once you understand the mechanism, you can actually do something about it. And the difference between a 1% account and a competitive easy access deal right now is real money, not a small percentage on a spreadsheet. If you want to go deeper on exactly how to structure your savings to actually beat inflation, ISAs, easy access rates, fixed term accounts, What's worth it and what's not? Look out for these videos in the links. Go watch it. And if this one made you think about your own account differently, drop a comment below. I genuinely want to know what rate you're currently getting, because I think the answers are going to be eye-opening. Subscribe if you're not already, because this kind of content is exactly what this channel is built around. The balance going up is not the same as your money growing. Now you know the difference.